It's time to down tools for a bit. Welcome to the ToolShed, the influential podcast for anyone and everyone involved in the building industry. Here's your host, Mick Hawes.
Hey there, before we kick off, I want to share a really important thought. 71% of you who watch this channel frequently don't subscribe. So if you've enjoyed any video you've ever watched, can you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps the channel more than you think, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. So let's go. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the ToolShed Podcast. On this episode, we've got a repeat offender. His name's Ron Nussbaum. If you've been listening to the podcast, you would have met Ron in the past. He's got a company called Builder.coms, but he's also got a podcast called the Construction Champions Podcast. We're going to talk about all of that in this episode. Before we get going, I just want to remind you to take the scorecard. So there's a link above, and it's all about the Builder Freedom Readiness Scorecard, because builders want freedom. They want freedom from the stress of constant financial issues, and they even want some level of time freedom as well. I don't know how many times I've spoken to a builder who hasn't had a holiday for 5 years, or if they do go on holidays or take time off, they either feel guilty or their mind's back at the office, thinking about work. And so what we've created is a very simple scorecard. It'll just take a couple of minutes, and it will deliver you a report after you've answered the questions and tell you what are the small things that you need to focus on to create readiness to be able to get some form of either time or financial freedom, or perhaps both. And one of the reasons why builders don't experience that freedom, they're constantly under pressure about too much work, not enough work, finding team members, no time, struggling with the cash flow, is because there is a process, a 3-step process that we've recently identified that makes this transition to be able to gain freedom so much easier. And once you've done the scorecard, you'll be given a report that will show you with this 3-step process what you need to work on to become ready to gain that freedom in your business. So take the scorecard. You'll be glad you did. Ron Nussbaum, welcome to the podcast again. Let people in on a little secret that we've already recorded this once, but because I'm a legend when it comes to audio and technology, I was talking in this mic, but I had this mic over here selected. And no one could hear what I said, which is, we probably could have published that episode because it's what you say is of interest, not what I say. So, but we always have fun when we have a chat. It's afternoon for you. It's early morning for me. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, man. And, like I said a little bit ago, this is when this conversation was supposed to happen. The magic that we talked about last time wasn't the magic that the industry was ready for yet.
So just to sort of go a little bit sideways, because I'm always fascinated by what, people's stories, people backstories, how they ended up where they ended up. You're all over the place. You've got Builder.coms, as I mentioned. You're an ex-Marine. And you were just telling me, because I said, how's your day been? Because it's morning for me, afternoon for you. And you said it's been a great day, and you told me why, because you were working with ex-vets. I'd love just to hear a little bit about that, because it's like, it's not always about, what do we do in business to make more money and all of that sort of stuff. It's about life, and how can we use our skills and build a business that can give us the freedom, either the time freedom or the financial wherewithal to be able to give back in other places in other causes. So tell us what you're doing there, because it sounded fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about freedom. Like, that's why we build anything, is to gain freedom. So I am blessed to have the opportunity to work with Syracuse University here on their bunker build-up program that Home Depot actually sponsors, where we help veterans transition into the construction industry, or ones that have already transitioned into the construction industry, help them set their businesses up to thrive. And it's really where my passion to help veterans, being that I'm a former Marine and I am a veteran, and my knowledge base around the construction industry and have been around here, they really collide.
Mhm.
And for me, it's one of my favorite couple hours that I get to do on a weekly basis is when I get to teach, facilitate, lead that group of entrepreneurs down the road and working in the construction industry.
Yeah, yeah. It is a really important topic, and it's sort of, in the introduction, I talked about freedom that most building business owners don't experience. Like it's a big driver in their mind, I believe, when they're making the decision to start their own business. They might have been a carpenter working for another business, and they go, well, my boss is a good bloke, but he's a bit hopeless at business. I reckon I could do a better job. so so off they go and start their own business with thinking that I'm going to be able to earn more money, which will give me financial freedom. I'm going to be able to choose who I work with, so that kind of gives me some form of emotional freedom. I'm not working with people I don't enjoy working with, but I can choose when to work and when I can take time off. So I'll get this time freedom. And the reality is none of those things happen for the majority of builders, and you've created Builder Comms, which is a platform for communication, and it's designed to help create efficiencies and quality, and contribute to freedom. But what do you see with the conversations you have with builders and other people on your podcast? You got the Builders Champions podcast, or Construction Champions podcast, sorry, and you speak to a lot of smart dudes. What are the things that you see that are causing so many builders not to experience the freedoms that they started the business to gain in the first place?
Man, that is a fantastic question. And like you had just said, it's like at the start, we have all these freedoms. I like to call them the reasons why.
Yeah.
We have all these reasons why we started the business, whether it's financially, or I want more time with my family, or I just want to be able to take a vacation, or I just want to be able to control my daily activities. And we quickly lose sight of those.
Mm.
We become overwhelmed. And the first stuff that we put on the back burner, the first stuff that we start to not think about, are those core reasons why we even started the business. And it becomes such a disconnect. And it's not how it should be. I don't quite, I've spent a lot of time around this subject because I believe at the core of why you started the business is why you would be successful if you don't lose that, because that's where the passion lies. It's where your ability to overcome the hard times lie in that why. The why I started this. Why am I even here doing what I'm doing currently? But it's what we consistently just move to the back door is I don't need to take a paycheck this week, or take a vacation next year, or I don't need to be at that event for my kids. I got to wrap up this project, or I don't need that new Harley Davidson. Maybe in a couple years I can get that. And we delay all the reasons why. We put them on the back burner instead of actually putting them front and center and saying, this is why I'm building this. It's okay to go achieve this stuff, I have to build a business that is capable of achieving these things that I set out to, and not a business that is more controlling than my actual job I love.
Mm. So what are your thoughts on I guess impatience around this? Like, what role does impatience and the desire to become successful, whatever that means in the builder's mind, now, rather than laying the foundations? Like, there are so many metaphors you can use from the building industry that builders don't use in their own mind. Like, the quality of the foundation sort of determines how high you can go, things like that. There are all of these metaphors, but many builders don't use them building their own business. Like, they want the glory. They want to, be polishing the handrails on the third floor to make it look specky versus doing the groundwork to make sure it's really, really solid. And so I feel that there's this impatience that's driving them to make poor decisions. And what struck me just the other day, I became aware of Warren Buffett's journey, and found out that he made the big majority, like high 90% of his wealth, his current wealth, after his 60th birthday. Because apparently when he was 60, he only had $2 billion. Like, I don't know how he survived. But, now he's sort of $250 billion or something like that. It's significantly more than $2 billion. But, and Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken, not that I'm promoting Kentucky Fried Chicken, but later in life they made their fortune. What do you think about this impatience? How is it affecting the builder, the mental state, and their ability to actually build a successful business if they're rushing and trying to get to the glory sooner rather than later?
Yeah. Success is a game of patience.
Mm.
Success is it is a never-ending change of where the bar is at. As you continue to grow, as you continue to do things, it's constantly moving. So you have to fundamentally just learn patience, because you don't know when you're going to get there. You can start to put this stuff together to better understand when you're going to get there. But the thing is when you get there, that ball moves. That's what business is. It's what success is. It's what high achievers are always going after. It's why we have to prioritize stuff in our life, because it's never ending. The patience you have to get to where you want to go is like, that's just what it is. We have to have patience. I play, as Alex Hormozi would say, infinity games. Everything I do has an infinity cycle to it, whether it's working out, the relationship with my wife, my kids, building a business. To me, these are all stuff that doesn't have an end point. It's infinity. I will constantly and always be working on it and becoming better at it. And when you start to look at stuff from that perspective, you really start to think about patience and knowing that this does not need to happen this month. It doesn't need to happen next year. I just have to continue to grow personally. I have to continue to grow in the way that I am playing this infinity game, because everything you do every day, if you're looking at it every day, you see no change. But if you're looking at it quarterly or annually, you'll start to see the changes. You'll start to see that patience pay off just by having the discipline and showing up every day.
Yeah. In infinity games, when you're talking about that, Alex Hormozi, that kind of triggered my thoughts around the infinite game by Simon Sinek, where he's talking about life and relationships, everything that you mentioned. Business is an infinite game. It's not so much that it goes on forever, but it is. But it's more about that it can't be won. Like you don't win or lose relationships. Or you don't win or lose life. On your headstone, here's Ron Nussbaum. He won life. It's an infinite game, and business is an infinite game, and many builders treat their business in a win-lose mindset, which is how you play a finite game. A finite game is like a game of basketball. When the clock runs down, it's over, and there are rules and all of that sort of stuff. Business isn't like that. There's no whistle, and so there is no win-lose. And I think it's really important to unpack this, because it's if you're setting yourself up each day for a win-lose, there's going to be a fair degree of lose. It's not going to be all that enjoyable. But if you're setting yourself up today, like you have, doing the work with the vets for fulfillment, because when you're playing an infinite game, it's fulfilling, and if you know the game you're playing and you play by the rules, every day you can get fulfillment. Like how did you feel doing what you did today? It wasn't win-lose. I imagine you felt very full.
Absolutely, because it's not a short-term perspective.
Yeah,
I said it even today in the class. Is I show up here and I do this because I know the long-term ripple effects that this has on not just here, but on the families, the community,
yes,
the groups of people around them. We have the same thing with our construction businesses. We have the opportunity to have those same ripples throughout our communities, and the people around us, the people we employ, the people that do the work for us. All of this stuff creates ripple effects. Like you said about the basketball game, we have to stop looking at it so short term that something has to happen. Now, like, stuff has to happen. Like, I think we can use this as an excuse to also say it's why I'm not progressing. But that's BS. You have to be moving forward, but you can't be saying this is a short game.
Yeah.
And then you can't use your problems as an excuse to say this is why we're not progressing.
Yeah.
Because we still have to solve these problems. We still have to grow as people. The only way it works in an infinite game is if you're continuing to develop and continue to learn, continue to grow that foundation of what you do to be able to play that game better. The greats in any sport got there by putting in the reps, by having the patience to be in the gym at 4:00 in the morning when everybody else is sleeping, knowing that this is not going to pay off in the next 2 years, but 5 years from now, this could have one of the biggest benefits to my game possible. As long as I show up every day and I do it right now, I have the discipline to do that. So you can't just have patience, you have to have the discipline to back that patience up.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're always trying to bring you information that's going to make your life as a builder much easier. So give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. A little while ago, you mentioned the reasons or the why, and to sort of circle back round from the Infinite Game, another Simon Sinek book that the first one that I ever read was Start With Why. And you mentioned, builders or carpenters jump into business to become a builder. And there are those reasons, the financial reasons, the time freedom reasons, all of that sort of stuff. And you mentioned that it's not that long into it that we get overwhelmed and we forget why. What were those motivating reasons before when we got started? how do you, or what are your thoughts on how we, number one, I guess, get back to why, finding those whys again, and how do we maintain focus on that? Because it's obviously it's the engine. Like if you're clear on the why, it drags you through the tough times. That the power of your why drags you through the tough times, and it doesn't make it seem so painful. But I guess it changes your emotional experience. There's a reason why you're doing this. How do we get back there, and how do we maintain focus on why our whys when we've got all of this shit going on and the changes and all of the challenges? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, you fix all the shit. You have to get that stuff straightened out and figured out. So, but you just have to focus on it. You just have to do it. Because if you don't, you're going to be in misery all the time. Because every year that you push that event or that thing or that reason why down the road is one more year that you lost of being able to do what you want to do and why you do what you do. So you just have to focus on it. You can't lose sight of it. You can't let shiny objects change what exactly that why is. You have to have a core principle. You just have to believe the biggest and best companies, the ones that last, the ones that have the biggest impact, are tied to something that business owner, that founder just believes. And that's their mission. And they just won't accept it. They won't accept no on that core reason why they do what they do. And that is very important. You have to be willing to put it front and center. Don't undercut yourself and say this doesn't matter. Well, it's the reason you started the business. Most would argue it is actually the most important thing around this. Can it possibly change? Yes. But I'm going to say 90+% of the time, when you go back and you look at why you do this, why are you right here, right now? It's going to be because of that moment, when you started the business and you have just lost sight of it. You have to recalibrate on that. You have to pull that back out of you because it's probably been beat in. It's been beat down to the point where you're like, I don't even know anymore. Take some time.
So
think about it. Remember why.
With your experience, what sort of actions, processes, techniques, perhaps even, can you use to get back to why? Because there's something that I discovered kind of just recently is that when a builder identifies a problem in their business, they will look for a solution. And so that solution might be a bit of software, or we've got to employ new people, or we've got to get a virtual assistant, or we've got to do some training with our team, or blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. But they go on the solution. But there is a step before that I've found is absolutely critical, because in my gig, coaching builders and around their business, is that they'll come to me with a problem. And you go, well, here's the solution. I find that quite easy, but that solution doesn't get implemented some of the time, most of the time. And we realized it's because there is chaos. There is chaos in their systems and processes, in the office on site. But moreover, there's chaos in between the ears. And so we're doing this process now, which I think is profoundly effective, where You've got to look at calming the chaos before you find and implement the solutions. What are some of the things that you do to keep yourself calm and focused in your mind? Because I'm sure in your world there's shit going on. There's stuff happening. How do you stay focused and sort of keep the chaos under control?
Yeah, absolutely. Put your phone down and go walk.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
That's how I get back to my center. I think so. I want to talk about what you were just talking about there, about how we don't actually solve the problems when we know we have a problem.
Mm.
Just talking to this builder, letting me know all the problems he has with his ability to be able to run a calendar. Like 10 crews, it's just chaos. It's all these problems. And I'm like, tell me more. It shouldn't be that way. That may like that can be fixed. I used to run 30 crews. I know it's possible. So I don't come from a place of ignorance when I have this conversation with him. And he immediately turns the problem into something that's a core strength in his business. And I was over the conversation at that point in time because I knew he didn't really want to solve the problem. He understood he had a problem, but was willing to defend the problem as being a strength in his business. And I reflected on that. And you know what I've realized is there's a growth that has to happen. There's a growth that has to take place to take us from we understand there's a problem and we really want to fix the problem. And that's hard. And what we need to do is we need to shrink that time that you get from I understand there's a problem to where I really want to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Because the longer you spend in that this problem's actually a plus for our business phase, the more chaos you have. Because like every time he adds a crew, all he's doing is doubling down on his current chaos because he's not at the growth period personally, professionally, business wise, where he's actually ready to admit, I have a problem, and chances are he's the reason for the problem.
Just because my mind is going when you said, he understands he's got a problem, but he somehow turned it into a strength of the business. Can you give me the example of that? Because I don't know, I didn't come up with anything, so he must have a good imagination.
Okay. Yeah, no. So the strength is they can respond quicker than anybody else. And that is what gives them a high market share in markets because his competition cannot do that. So by doing that, it inherently makes his schedule chaos, but it's one of his strengths of his business. And actually the word that was used was backbone of how I built the business. So that's how we took a problem and then defended it as being a strength in the business.
But it's not really serving the purpose that he started the business for in the first place. If indeed one of his reasons was to gain time freedom or some sort of financial freedom, because I'm assuming he's under the pump in both of those spaces.
100%.
Yeah, and so and this is something that I think about and talk to our guys about a lot, and I'd be really fascinated as to your take on it as well. Is that our natural desire? So if we're not making enough profit, the majority of people's focus goes to we need more work, we need bigger jobs, we need to increase our total income. And every time that happens, profit goes down, stress goes up, free time goes down, and it's absolutely not the answer to the problem. But it always seems to be the knee-jerk reaction. Our business, we're not making any money. I had a chat to a chappie yesterday on the other side of the country. Amazing, lovely bloke, smart guy, and he's built a business in 7 years, which is really, really quickly to a total turnover of $30 million annually. And he was telling me that he was losing something like $400,000 a month. And like obviously distressed by it, but under the financial pump and under the time pressure as well. What are your thoughts on that concept? And do you have any way to snap people out of this hypnosis that they think bigger is going to be solving the problem? Because it's obviously not.
I'm going to pose a question to you that I have never got an answer that actually works. And that is, if you can't be profitable at $1 million a year, what makes you think doing $10 million a year that you can be profitable?
Yeah.
I've never had anybody be able to answer that with any logic other than, oh, well, the more I do, the more money that we're have coming in. Well, if you can't do it at 1 million, or even if you can't do it at 100,000, you can't do it at 1 million.
Yeah.
I understand that the more volume you do, the cost and stuff come down. How much money are you losing? What do you need to do to actually get to being profitable? Like, it's the foundation that's broken.
Yeah.
It's not the amount of work that's coming through the door. It's the core foundation. Like, we run businesses in our services construction, but what we say is we run a construction business and we dilute what's acceptable in business with this word construction. Like, for some reason, it's different over here. But then at the same time, we're saying I can't make any money at 1 million a year, but at 10 million a year, I'll make 30% and I'll make $3 million. When it couldn't be any farther from the truth. If you can't make that 30% at 1 million, you're not going to make it at 10 million.
Well, I mean, if we unpack that, and get a bit logical, where my brain goes when you go, okay, I'm at 1 million, and with scaling, if I'm buying more materials, and I go to 10 million, I'm going to be able to make more money on those materials because I can buy them cheaper because I'm buying them in bulk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What they failed to put into the calculation, I'm assuming, is that from 1 million to 10 million, there's a lot more clients. There are more staff involved. There are more opportunities for things to go wrong. There are more people asking you questions and there are more problems. And my observations on this is if you just went from 1 million to 2 million, the problems that you got in your $1 million business don't double, they quadruple. Like, it's exponential as the revenue goes up and the people go up and the problems go up. The tax on you, the time tax and the emotional tax and the mental tax on you increase exponentially. So it's such a flawed concept in my mind. What are your thoughts?
Well, I 100% agree with that. See, I'm a problem solver. And how I look at this is I understood every time I add a crew, I compound every one of the problems in the business. At whatever multiple we want to use, it is a compounding factor. The problems don't get better, they become worse because I've added more variables to them. So unless I permanently fix a problem that is then scalable beyond that, every time I add a crew, it will get worse. The chaos will get worse. The problems will get worse. So I always say, like, we just need to fix the problems. We need to find the solutions and we need to fix them once and for all in a way that will continue to grow with us. Instead of thinking that adding is the way that we work our way out of it. It's actually the way you get yourself in trouble. because then it starts to creep on you because you think you're doing what's better. So you're inherently then naive that these problems in your business are getting worse when you're doing more money or you're doing more revenue. You become naive in there. You start to think, it's getting better. We're at another crew, and then you just compounded it again, and then you do it again, and then next thing gets to the point where you're losing $400,000 a month. And like I've been around long enough, that's not the first time I've heard something like that. Like that stuff happens.
So I want to be smart here and segue to because what you were talking about there, we've got to fix the problems, and obviously the smart way of doing it is getting the team and the people that are involved in the doing involved in identifying what the problem is and what the solution could be. And communication is a key part of that. You've got a company and a product called Builder Comms. It's all about communication. Just tell us a little bit about Builder Comms, but from the perspective of why you created it, because it seems to me that the underlying purpose of Builder Comms is communication. Therefore, it's a critical part of a successful business, and I want your thoughts on what communication actually is, because in my mind, I think most people think communication is me telling Ron something. I tell you something. But that's about as far from what communication is that you can get. Like what really is communication? Why is it important? Why did you build a business around that one word?
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we get here to today? I got tired of the communication problem and the gap compounding consistently between the customer, between the team, between everybody. Every time you added a crew, it compounded. It became worse. We had more moving elements. Gmail, emails, text messages, Slack channel. It just wasn't getting the job done. It wasn't a scalable solution. It actually added more layers to it. And what I needed to be able to do was have a forward documented, right? I needed to know what was happening on every project. I needed to know that if a client got a message, if they had seen it, and did they respond, and what was said, and what is the team saying. I couldn't have stuff being missed. And that's at the core where Builder Comms came from, is every piece of software I had sucked at all that stuff. And I was like, I just need a simple solution. One night I was laying in bed, it hit me. It's like, if I just had a simple piece of software that worked as air traffic control and just kept everybody on the same page from a communications perspective. So we're talking the messaging, the what is happening, the tasks, who's doing what, just a simple piece of software to be able to unify everybody on the project in one place, I could fix this problem. And what happened was I became extremely passionate about this problem to the point where I brought the software to market, and it's what I do. I'm here to fix this once and for all, how we communicate as a construction industry, how we communicate with each other, our clients, and how we document that and make sure that we have one single point of truth. That's what communication is. It's just one single point of truth between different parties. And we lose sight of that in construction because we use how we've always done it. And we don't just bring it in and understand we have different stakeholders and different people with different concerns, different expectations, and we don't set anybody up for success.
The very first time we spoke, we talked about Builder Comms, and the last time we spoke, when I stuffed up the technology, you'd changed your approach with Builder Comms. So, I found that fascinating. So I think that's worthy of repeating in the recording that people will actually hear. But otherwise, I'm the only one who knows about it because you told me personally. So what has changed since you started Builder Comms? Because it's a fairly revolutionary shift.
So you have to bring me up to speed on that a little bit. It's been a while. Stuff's always changing. I'm in the process of redeveloping the entire software right now based off of our user feedback and what the industry wants.
So where is it heading now? What's the feedback that you're getting, and what are the changes that you're making based on the feedback?
So we're moving it into, we're a communication platform at heart. That's what I build it for. What I learned, not pretty quickly, but what I've learned in the last few years of doing this is a lot of the big dogs don't want to play. They just want to own their market share. They don't care if they offer the solution or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to grow our offering a little bit more, because we bring people in here and we offer them a communication solution, and there's some other things they still need. So we're going to build some of those out directly from what people have told us they want. We're expanding on our ability to be able to have clients and team members in one place and being able to let's just say I am putting together the most important piece of construction software that has probably ever been built. And then we're going to then bring in AI and put us in a position where manual entry is gone, where you don't have to sit down and enter in all of this data. The biggest thing I hear from users, non-users, is I don't want to put information in anymore. And we're going to put it in a position to where you can literally pick up your phone and say, hey, we're starting a project at 123 Sesame Street. John's going to be the foreman. Sam was the salesperson. Dan and Mary are the clients. We need to get everything put in. I need you to send Dan a message. I need you to send Mary a message. I need to bring in the appropriate people from our company, create all of this, get it off to the races, our standard tasks, everything, and hit send, and that happens. And now everybody's brought into the loop. And there's no more having to pull all of this stuff in. We'll still have a standard way where you can manually enter it if you're not wanting to jump in that road to where all of that stuff starts to happen. But I believe we're at a time where the technology has met what the industry really wants. And I'm nimble enough to build it and to say, I just want to give the industry what it wants. I don't need to build something that nobody wants. I want to build what they want and actually desire, and not jam something down their throat that they're made to believe that they need or want.
Yeah. Before we bail, I just want to sort of visit the podcast, the Constructions Champion podcast, and kind of why you do it. I mean, I know why I started this podcast originally, and that was, I wanted, and I still do want to make a positive contribution to the improvement and the professionalism and the enjoyment, and get rid of the pain from the building industry, the unnecessary pain. To be quite transparent, really the main motivation for me now, selfishly, is I just really like it. I get to meet people like you and have these conversations, and it's just fun and it's inspiring, and I learn a heap of stuff. So that's really my personal reason for doing it, and I hope that inspires people's thoughts and changes people's minds and gets them to, change some things so they can enjoy their business a whole lot more. But you've got a podcast called Construction Champions. Why did you start that? What's the purpose of your podcast? What drove you?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can't tell, I'm a little bit passionate about the construction industry. So, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I ended up on a job site. And a lot of times I say it probably saved my life because I was looking for everything I had lost when I got out of the Marine Corps. I started the podcast because I truly believe in this industry and I want to see it become everything that it's meant to be. And I want to change the mindset around it. If you go back and you listen to episode 0, whatever, where I talk about how I'm just so sick and tired of the industry not getting the respect that it deserves because that's the narrative we allow to be told. And my goal is to bring on champions in the construction industry and talk about what it takes to be a construction champion and to create the ripples to where the whole mindset and the narrative around the construction industry changes because we start acting like the champions we are. Because it's truly on us. It's not on anybody else. Just because however anybody thinks about it, a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to the industry. We have allowed that to happen, and it's up to us to change it. And if we don't come together to change that, and we change the mindset internally in construction, it will never change externally. So my passion project of the podcast, which I tend to have all these passion projects, I have stuff that matters because it's like we talked about, it's an infinity game.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing things that have lasting impact, it's really hard to be excited about them and to get up and do them every day. And that's the podcast for me, is it's an opportunity to forever change the construction industry.
Yeah. Just listening to what you were saying there, it's like it was almost word for word in my mind as to why we do what we do as well. You know, particularly that the industry doesn't get the respect it deserves. I think that builders are so incredibly important to people's lives. You know, people might not realize it, but like we'd be in shit street without them. We'd still be living in caves. So, you know, it's kind of important. And you know, just the environments they make for families and for protection and for shelter and enjoyment and memories and all of that sort of stuff. The end result that they deliver is super important. Where it tends to fall down is the people's experience from not having a house to having a house, that bit there that the builders do. The experience of the customer tends to be, you know, suboptimal, let's say, because of what you said. It's they deserve that respect, but they have allowed and potentially caused the way that the market sees them, and there's suspicion and low level of trust and all that sort of stuff because they're not as professional as they could or should be. And hopefully the stuff that you're talking about and we're talking about can help them understand that their product is not the building, their product is the quality of the client's experience. And if they just shift that one little mental paradigm, they approach their business and prioritize things in their business very, very differently. So I guess that's why we talk a fair bit, Ron, because with each other, because we kind of believe and want the same thing. So it's you know, I really, really enjoy our conversation. So thanks for putting the time aside for being on the podcast. It's later in the afternoon, early evening for you. I'm just starting my day, but I will always enjoy our conversations. Thanks for being here.
I absolutely enjoy them as well, and thank you for having me back.
My absolute pleasure, folks. That is it for this episode of the ToolShed Podcast. Jump onto buildercoms.com. So buildercoms.com. We're going to have the link in the description, and check that out as a platform for communication, because there is nothing more important to the success of a business than quality communications. Also, where you get all of your podcasts, have a listen to the Constructions Champions podcast with Ron. He gets some pretty amazing people on there. I was one of them once. So I've, as I mentioned to Ron when we got started or before we got started, I've been watching a fair bit of YouTube on the telly, and the Champions podcast, Construction's Champions podcast, has been coming up. So Big Brother's been listening to me, and I've been watching a whole bunch of those episodes, and I can highly recommend it. So that's it for this episode. Before we get out, just a reminder to invest a couple of minutes in taking the Builders Freedom Readiness Scorecard. It's a bit of a mouthful, but there's a link in the description for that. Couple of minutes, and you will have a report in your inbox before you know it about what you can do to ready yourself and calm the chaos to be able to get a little bit more time and financial freedom in your business. Absolutely well worth the investment of a couple of minutes. We'll be back with another episode of the ToolShed Podcast before you know it. I'm Mick Hawes from Builders Business Black Belt. That is all. I'm out. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the ToolShed. If this podcast struck a chord with you, make sure you spread the word by sharing it with your mates in the building industry. We love your help to make the building industry better for everyone involved.